Have you ever been so sick that you felt like you literally forgot how to speak your own native language?
Oh, yeah, like a total cognitive wipeout,
Right. I mean, I'm talking about that heavy, overwhelming fatigue where just trying to form a coherent sentence feels like running a marathon.
let alone trying to do it in a second language.
Exactly. Well, welcome to your deep dive. Today, we are looking at a situation you have almost certainly faced, and one that is, universally stressful.
Navigating a medical visit?
Navigating a medical
Yeah.
visit, yeah. And we are using this masterclass in high-stakes crisis communication that is actually disguised as an English lesson.
Which is such a cool angle.
It really is. It comes from a highly practical breakdown on Tim's English channel. And while the original lesson is designed to help English learners talk to a doctor without getting overwhelmed, the underlying strategies apply to absolutely anyone who has ever felt intimidated in a clinic.
Because when we strip away the complexities of language, we reveal the core mechanics of how human beings exchange critical information under pressure.
Right. We are not just going to look at what to say. We're going to look at the psychology of illness, the hidden power dynamics of a doctor's office, and how strategically simplifying your communication can fundamentally change your healthcare outcomes.
And that starts before you even see the doctor.
Okay, let's unpack this. The entire lesson is built around acknowledging a very real physiological state that Tim's channel casually refers to as sick brain.
Sick brain, I love that term.
It's so accurate because before you even get to see a doctor, you have to get past the administrative barrier, right? The front desk. And sick brain is your biggest enemy here.
What's fascinating here is how the channel's approach completely bypasses traditional language instruction.
How so?
Well, usually language learning is about expression, translating your specific thoughts into words. But when you have sick brain, that process is physically exhausting.
Oh, totally.
The cognitive load is already maxed out by your immune system fighting an infection. You just want to feel better.
It's like your brain only has a certain amount of RAM available.
Yes, perfect analogy.
When you are healthy, you have plenty of processing power to run the complex grammar application. But when you're sick, the illness is running a massive background process that uses up like 90% of your CPU.
You literally do not have the processing power left to invent nuanced language on the spot.
Right. And that is why a beginner's natural instinct to try and translate exactly how they feel is so draining. They end up with this rough, choppy phrase like, I am sick, I want doctor today.
Which is a massive drain on their limited mental RAM because it requires active construction.
Exactly. Which is why the lesson introduces specific standardized phrases like, I'd like to make an appointment, please.
Yes.
They teach it not just as polite vocabulary, but as a cognitive bypass. They even emphasize breaking down the word like appointment.
Precisely. It
Yeah.
functions as a precompiled script.
Yeah.
If you commit that exact phrase to memory, you don't have to build a sentence when your fever is spiking.
You just hit play.
You just hit play on the script.
Yeah.
You are offloading the mental work from your exhausted working memory to your long-term memory.
And Tim's lesson takes that cognitive bypass even further when dealing with the immediate follow-up question.
Oh, the symptom question.
Yes, because the moment you ask for that appointment, the person at the front desk is inevitably going to ask, what are your symptoms? Or why do you need to see the doctor today?
Which is a trap.
It feels like an interrogation. If your CPU is already maxed out, trying to describe the specific nature of your sinus pressure to a receptionist is just overwhelming.
And unnecessary. The brilliant workaround pointed out in the lesson is the deployment of a very specific boundary-setting phrase.
I am not feeling well.
That is it, just, I am not feeling well.
It almost feels too brief, you know?
It does feel brief, but it is highly strategic. The administrative staff does not need your diagnostic criteria. They just need to categorize the visit.
Right.
By saying, I am not feeling well, you are satisfying their administrative requirement while fiercely protecting your remaining cognitive energy.
You're saving the complex, detailed explanations for the person who actually needs them. The doctor, exactly. So that cognitive shortcut gets you in the door. You make the call, you arrive at the clinic, you rely on another precompiled script to check in, simply stating your name and your appointment time.
Like, hello, I have an appointment at 10 o'clock.
Right. Hello, I have an appointment at 10 o'clock, and you take a seat. But the real test of this simplification theory happens when the stakes get higher.
The physical encounter.
Yeah. The waiting room door opens, and you are actually face-to-face with the doctor.
This is where the variables multiply and the anxiety usually peaks.
Right. You are sitting on that crinkly paper on the exam table, and you have to actually describe the pain. Tim's lesson introduces a remarkably minimalist approach here.
Relying on just two simple structures.
Yeah, two foundational linguistic frameworks to get the diagnostic ball rolling. Number one is I have a fever, followed by the condition.
I have a fever, or I have a stomach ache.
Exactly. And number two is my blank hurts, where you just insert the body part. My leg hurts, my back hurts, my eye hurts.
It is incredibly streamlined.
It is. But I have to push back a little bit on this one.
Okay, let's hear it.
Wait, is that really enough? If I just point to my shoulder and say my shoulder hurts, doesn't a doctor need more data than that?
You'd think so, right?
Yeah. Shouldn't a patient try to articulate if it is a sharp, stabbing pain versus a dull, throbbing sensation? It feels like we are leaving out crucial medical information by keeping it that simple.
It is a valid concern, but we have to look at the diagnostic heuristics, the mental shortcuts that doctors use.
Okay.
For beginners, my back hurts is 100% correct, natural English. And medical professionals do not diagnose based on patient eloquence.
Right.
They rely heavily on spatial mapping and visual cues. When you point to your shoulder and say hurts, you are giving the doctor the exact geographical starting point they need.
So they prefer the raw location over a poetic description of the pain.
Often, yes. Just pointing and saying hurts gives the doctor exactly what they need to start. In fact, over-articulation from a patient can sometimes muddy the waters, especially if the vocabulary used doesn't perfectly align with medical definitions.
That makes sense.
By simply establishing the locus of the pain, you invite the doctor to do their job. They will take over. They will palpate the area. They'll ask guided questions. They will use their instrument.
You are handing them the map and letting them navigate.
Exactly. You are not responsible for the diagnosis. And while we are on the topic of these physical frameworks, the lesson highlights a really quirky English exception that maps directly onto our anatomy.
Oh, the ache versus sore distinction.
Yes.
I found this completely mind-blowing because, as a native speaker, you never think about it. You just do it.
It reveals a lot about how English categorizes the body. We say headache and we say stomach ache. The suffix ache almost always implies an internal, continuous systemic pain.
Like it's happening inside the cavity.
Right. But we never say throat ache.
Never. Even though the throat is right there. Internal, experiencing continuous pain.
The lesson specifically flags that for the throat, the correct categorization is always a sore throat.
Always.
The word sore in English functionally implies a pain that is triggered or exacerbated by contact or movement. A sore muscle hurts when you flex it. A sore spot hurts when you press it.
Oh, wow.
So a sore throat hurts specifically when the tissue is engaged, like when you swallow or speak.
So it is not just a random grammar rule to memorize. It is an anatomical distinction baked into the language. Having the exact phrase, I have a sore throat, is diagnostic gold because it immediately communicates the mechanical nature of the pain to the doctor.
Exactly. It is high-efficiency communication.
Okay, so the doctor has the physical coordinates. They know you have a sore throat or your stomach hurts. The next phase of the visit is establishing the timeline and the medical history.
The timeline trap.
Right. And here's where it gets really interesting. Because the lesson points out a massive psychological trap that language learners, and honestly nervous patients in general, fall into.
The urge to over-explain.
Yes. The doctor asks a question like, when did this start? Or how long have you felt like this? And the immediate instinct is to construct a full, grammatically complex narrative.
Oh, people want to tell the whole story.
You want to say, well, I have been experiencing a fever since Tuesday evening after I walked in the rain, but then the cough started.
You're trying to use the present perfect continuous tense while your immune system is crashing.
Exactly.
It is a recipe for complete cognitive failure.
And Tim's channel gives a very strict warning against this. They argue that in the exam room, the doctor is essentially acting as a detective, and they are just looking to fill in a timestamp on a clue.
Right.
They do not care about the narrative poetry of how you describe the time. They just need the data point.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of clinical triage, the doctor's mental checklist is essentially a database.
Right.
They just need a value to input for the variable labeled time of onset.
Right. The detective just needs the raw data point. So the correct answer, the recommended response, is to drop the grammar entirely and just deliver the timestamp.
Yesterday.
2 days ago.
This morning. Period.
It's so simple.
It requires a profound shift in mindset, though, especially for someone actively studying a language. The classroom environment conditions you to believe that complexity equals competence.
Right. You get an A for using advanced verb tenses.
But the clinical environment rewards efficiency. Accuracy of data completely overrides conversational fluency.
And that absolute prioritization of data over fluency becomes a literal life or death scenario with the next phase of the doctor's interrogation.
The safety question.
Yes. Are you allergic to any medication? The lesson is adamant that you must have the phrase, "I am allergic to," locked and loaded.
Because the consequences of a miscommunication here are catastrophic. Anaphylaxis from an antibiotic like penicillin is rapid and severe.
It is the ultimate proof that the doctor is not grading your English. They do not care if your pronunciation is flawless. They only care if the prescription they're about to write is going to send you to the emergency room.
Exactly. So you deliver the raw data. I am allergic to penicillin or peanuts. Or if you aren't, a simple, clear no. No elaboration required.
And by keeping the timeline and the allergy information to these stark, simple data points, you preserve enough mental energy for the final and arguably most dangerous phase of the visit.
The discharge phase.
Yeah, which brings us to the resolution of the appointment. You have bypassed the front desk, mapped out your pain, delivered the timeline, and cleared the allergy check.
The doctor has all the variables.
Right. They make a diagnosis, they write a prescription, and they give you your instructions. And this is where the entire system can completely break down. The danger of the smile and nod.
It's a devastatingly common phenomenon.
Tim's lesson brings up the listener's biggest fear, this ultimate nightmare scenario. You are sitting there, exhausted, and the doctor rapidly fires off a wall of medical jargon.
Oh, yeah. Take these antibiotics twice a day with meals. Don't take on an empty stomach. Come back in a fortnight.
Yes, a completely overwhelming auditory assault for a sick brain. And the source explicitly warns against the most deeply ingrained psychological reflex we have in that moment.
Smiling and nodding.
Right. They warn against smiling, nodding your head, saying thank you, and leaving the office confused with absolutely no idea how to take your medication safely.
It happens all the time.
But, I mean, isn't that just a natural human survival instinct? I relate to this so deeply.
We all do.
If I am at a busy coffee shop and the barista speaks too fast and asks me a question I don't catch, I just smile, nod, and take whatever drink they hand me. I just want to avoid the friction and the embarrassment.
This raises an important question about how we evaluate context and risk. The channel's lesson makes a brilliant implicit contrast here. We carry our low-stakes social habits into high-stakes environments. At the coffee shop, the friction of asking for clarification feels worse than the consequence of getting the wrong drink.
Right. The worst-case scenario is that you consume dairy instead of oat milk. You survive.
Exactly. It's a mild inconvenience. But in the clinical setting, the stakes are your physical health.
Right.
Taking a medication on an empty stomach when it requires food, or stopping an antibiotic early because you didn't understand the instructions can lead to severe relapses or antibiotic resistance.
Wow.
Trading your actual health for the sake of avoiding 5 seconds of social awkwardness is a terrible bargain.
So why do we do it? Why are we so willing to make that terrible bargain?
It comes down to the sociology of the doctor-patient relationship, which is inherently asymmetrical. The doctor is an authority figure. They are in their domain, wearing a white coat, wielding specialized knowledge. We are biologically and socially conditioned to appease authority figures.
The white coat syndrome.
Exactly. And when you add a language barrier on top of that, the patient experiences a doubled sense of vulnerability.
Yeah, that makes sense.
They feel physically inferior because they are ill and intellectually inferior because they lack the vocabulary. The patient feels like their confusion is a burden on this busy, important professional.
Which is why the solution offered in the lesson is so empowering. They teach phrases like, "Could you speak more slowly, please?" Or, "Could you repeat that, please?" Not as apologies, but as tools of agency.
By interrupting the doctor's flow, you are rejecting the passive role. You actually take control of the situation.
And if there is a specific word that creates a roadblock, like the doctor says prescription, and you have never heard that word in your life, you don't just guess from context. The lesson gives you the exact script for unknown vocabulary. I don't understand the word prescription. What does that mean?
It is direct, it is polite, and it forces the authority figure to recalibrate their communication to match your needs.
Yeah.
It reminds the doctor that the ultimate goal of the interaction is not for them to sound smart or for you to pass an English test, but for you to get well.
You are taking control of your own health care by admitting what you don't know. It is such a powerful paradox.
It really is. Admitting confusion is the most competent thing you can do in that room.
So, looking back at this whole journey, let's do a rapid-fire recap of this ultimate survival toolkit, these 5 key phrases from the source. Number 1, bypassing sick brain at the front desk. I'd like to make an appointment, please.
Number 2, checking in smoothly. Hello, I have an appointment at 10 o'clock.
Number 3, mapping the pain. I have a sore throat, or my stomach hurts.
Number 4, the life-saving data point. I am allergic to, whatever it is.
And number 5, stopping the jargon train. Could you repeat that, please? So what does this all mean?
It's a great question.
The ultimate takeaway here, whether you are an English learner or even a native speaker, is that effective communication in a crisis is about clarity. It is about establishing boundaries, dropping the ego, and prioritizing your well-being over performing fluency.
It is profound how stripping away the complexity actually makes the communication infinitely stronger.
Yeah.
We have seen how simply saying, I don't understand, can quite literally save your health at the doctor's office.
Absolutely.
Which leaves us with a final thought to ponder. What is another high-stakes situation in your life where letting go of the need to sound smart and embracing simple, clear communication could completely change the outcome?
That is a brilliant question to end on. Where else are you overcomplicating things just to save face? Think about that as you go about your day. We encourage you to share your thoughts and takeaways on that with us. Thank you for joining us on your deep dive, and we'll catch you next time.